A speech, you're very vocal on this issue, and you've even got your own van here. Tell me why you're going around the country trying to raise the alarm.
I think the van speaks for itself, doesn't it, for why I'm actually doing it?
It does.
Because these are all crimes. But for those who are watching it for the first time, if I go through maybe the van with you,
Yeah,
is that okay? So I'll keep it very simple. This is Break and Silence Project. What happens when you break silence against these crimes? We're talking about child sexual exploitation, abuse at home, emotional abuse, bullying, neglect, online abuse and self-abuse. And children and parents call 999, 101, NSPCC, schools, colleges, the whole lot of it, but no one comes to the aid. Now, the reason why they don't come to the aid is because of this side here. This is breaking silence on the broken system. So you find here social workers, liars, criminals, storytellers. Who do they lie to? Well, one thing I can tell you now, they lie to everyone. What do they lie about? They lie about everything. Now, these are concerns now, if anybody's listening. Do social workers neglect children? Yes, they do. Do they mistreat our children? Yes, they do. Are social workers doing the crime and our children, our babies, are doing the time? Yes, they are. Are victims being victimized? Now, victims being victimized, every crime I've just showed you on the other side is the kind of victims that are deliberately victimized by the local authorities deliberately. Do social workers control our judges and police? Yes, they are. Okay? And that's very, very simple. They provide them false information, manufactured documents, manufactured concerns, manufactured crimes. And then in the middle here is very, very simple. Paedophile rings, corruption within the authorities and grooming gangs. Now, why is this on here? Because right now I could show you live and directly that social services, victims of child sexual abuse, are covered up by the social services deliberately. So these victims now for child sexual exploitation, if they can't report these crimes, who's benefiting? The benefit goes to the pedophiles because they're going to continue doing what they're doing. And obviously you can get more information on LCS News. It's only due to safeguarding child protection on public media I don't give you too much about it, because it's too much, and I've got to make sure we protect our members of the public. And would you like to know more? And this is why it's so important that the members of the public really come together and wake up. So with me knowing all this, experienced all this, and travelled to the whole United Kingdom with evidence in every town and city is the reason why I'm doing it, because at the end of the day it's our responsibility, because we know the system, the authorities are failing. As you already should know, that social workers services are inadequate in all areas and unfit for purpose. Now remember this, they're inadequate in all areas and unfit for purpose, and we're handing our children to that. Are you kidding me? So this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, and hopefully we need to make that change.
So we're talking about professionals not doing their job. Is this every professional, or are we just talking about some?
No, this isn't every professional. Look, I've made it clear here. Are there any good social workers out there? Yes, there are. Now, how this is very, very simple is any good social worker that actually speaks up about doing the right thing, simply they get sacked, removed, or sent on the sick. Now, if you want evidence on that, I'm willing to provide you evidence on that. But let's look at the ones that are liars, criminal storytellers. When you go into a complaint procedure and they know they're going to get caught, what they do is they move them from that local area, they move them to another department in the town and city to prey on other children. So when they're manufacturing documents with what I've just mentioned, they continue doing the same operation in other towns and cities. So this is now a network of either dumb and stupid. You know, I mean, it's like working with Tom and Jerry here. I think, or Scooby-Doo, I mentioned, I think they could do a better job as cartoon fictional, you know what I mean, than the reality. And this is an issue.
So what do we do moving forward?
To move forward, the only way to move forward, we need to now, everybody needs to wake up. It needs to be a public inquiry in every town and city, because through the information of one town and city has now lingered up to over 17 other towns and cities that are employing perpetrators. They are employing people who are continuously lying, manufacturing documents, manufacturing concerns, manufacturing crimes against the members of the public, and particularly women and children are the most vulnerable. And they're deliberately targeting them. And I've mentioned this before, and this is not acceptable. And I've seen this issue that's going on, including, if I just point out to with the paedophile side, or victims of child sexual abuse. When a girl, for example, is going through this, firstly, they allow it because they're inadequate in all areas and unfit for purpose, and they're covering up everything. And when she's at an age where she can move forward and have a life of her own, and she gets married and she settles down with somebody, then that's an excuse for them to come involved and say, look, because you've been raped as a child, we don't think you're fit enough to have this child, we're taking your child. So it's not about prevention, it's about exploitation.
That actually prevents people from coming forward, and I know that because I've spoken to many survivors across the country. So they don't want to come forward and report what's happened to them because they're afraid social care will get involved, assess them and say, well, because of what's happened, you're not fit to care for your children, I'm going to remove. And also some of the victims have had children through their rape, and professionals are notifying the rapist that a child was born from it, and then that rapist can then go and apply through the family courts for contact or custody with that child.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. Victimising victims, isn't it? That's exactly what they're doing. Do you know what the fear factor is? There are tens of thousands of just mothers alone right now that we could bring forward that are going through this ordeal. And let's go to a simple example of domestic violence. There are mothers out there that real cases that are going through domestic violence are so scared, so petrified that they'd rather take a beating, they'd rather go through the suffering of the partner than to speak up against the atrocity, because they know that they will be then blamed and victimized. We know this because victims who have come forward for domestic violence, what did they say? Well, you've gone through it. We think you're held responsible for it. You weren't there to protect your children. Hang on. The mother is talking about her going through domestic violence. She's protected the children. She's came forward. She's speaking out to get help and support, but then they exploit it, aren't they? So this is very scary, that is.
As well, what we've also seen is when the victim does remove the children, from the environment and they go to safety, then professionals are saying that it's parental alienation and there's threats to remove the children because they're being removed from the perpetrator.
Yeah, see, victims in general now, the perpetrator, let's say in any family now, one of them is a bad apple. That bad apple will be the one that will be supported by your local authorities. They will be supported to such a level that physical, emotional, psychological, everything we're talking about, safeguarding child protection that they talk about, will be completely covered up, and they'll deliberately give that child to the perpetrator. How does that make any sense whatsoever? And this could be given both sides, whether it's a father or a mother, and they'll always give it to the perpetrator. And who's paying the price for it again? In any way we go, it's our children who are paying the price for it.
And just to add, that has actually been proven in cases throughout the country where, perpetrators are actually getting custody of the children as well.
Yeah, now this is absolutely bizarre or mental status that we've actually got ourselves into. This is what's going on in the family courts, where they're putting our children at risk. Now, I need to ask the question is when they get caught, I want to know who's taking the rap, who's going to go to jail for it. Because there's only one law. So physical abuse, emotional abuse, it counts for anybody and everybody. And currently right now, the situation is this. Every crime that the social workers are doing is framed on the judges. And the judges, now what we're going to do about it? It's like what I mentioned earlier on. If you want to blame the judges, great. If you're saying social workers are innocent, then they're blaming the judges. So that means every judge is a liar, criminal, and a storyteller. You see? So who do you want to blame? So this message needs to be, now the public needs to wake up, and I'm hoping professionals, if they are in that capacity, to understand what we've just been talking about, to actually come forward and start seeing evidence. And if somebody wants evidence, and like I mentioned, with me being travelling up and down the country, it doesn't matter what town and city you are, there's victims there. You want to see this information, we'll provide you victims, but they need protecting, because the victims being victimised, we are going to protect, because we're going to allow the social workers or the police to intimidate, threaten victims. We're not going to tolerate that. There's a fight, there's a war on. This is against perpetrators, against abuse on our children. And why should we stay quiet? And why is people being scared? You don't need to be scared. We're fighting for the freedom of our children.
But what you've got to remember is, especially right now, people are going to prison just for posting memes on social media. Can you blame people for being scared? They're going to prison.
You know, you're 100% right there. So they'll do that for somebody posting something. Yet victims of child exploitation, physical abuse, emotional abuse are just neglected, just like ignored. Hey, it's all right, don't worry about it. What do you mean, don't worry about it? We're not worried about it, we're concerned. But now we're concerned about the authorities, about the whole system.
We've also seen, especially recently, there's paedophiles that have been found guilty in a court of law, and they're walking free from court. They're not even going to prison.
Well, not only that they're free from the courts, if you look at it, they've got more rights on a child that they'll get their contact. Yet parents out there who haven't done anything like that, apart from the manufactured documents and the concerns and whatever comes from the social services side, they lose their contact. They don't get to see their children not for weeks, months, years and decades. And we've got to wait. What we're waiting for? This is now, remember you mentioned about alienation there? Our children are being alienated by the very same corporate companies who are talking about alienation is a crime. The same corporate company is saying neglect is a crime. Is they neglecting our children? Also, they're saying about mistreating children is a crime. They're doing it also.
As well, I've been raising since 2018. I'm telling people that children are being trafficked by professionals through the system. Do you think that's true?
That's more than true. That's fact now. You can't get away with that. I mentioned briefly there. I mean, I don't go into child trafficking. It goes over most people's heads. But to learn about the child trafficking, you need to learn about how our children are stolen. So if you understand that when they manufacture documents, manufacture concerns, manufacture crimes against the members of the public and steal our children, then you know the children have been taken. Then we could talk about it's getting trafficked now. What do we mean by traffic now? Let's be simple. We have thousands of children who disappear. Trafficking not only just means about disappearing out the states and towns. When they're taking our children from one town to another town to another town, from one foster carer to another foster carer to another foster care or adoption agencies, this is trafficking children. Okay, don't be deluded in thinking that it just means one particular thing. People need to stop watching Hollywood and Bollywood. This is not fictional. These are fact-finding. This is the real life thing. Okay? So, there's a Freedom, that film called Freedom, Mel Gibson made, Sound of Freedom. Maybe watch that. These are real life things that are actually happening. It is being exposed, and don't think it's just in one country. One of my first people that reached out to me was a grandmother from Canada. And she came onto me, spoke to me, and when after speaking to her, she told me about her circumstances, that her grandchildren were taken from Canada. And the reason why she reached out to me, because I was in the UK, that the grandmother was saying that I was told that the children were in UK, but when she got to the parliament and the procedures, she got told that the children haven't landed in UK. So where did the children go? This is child trafficking. Very, very simple. And this is very much real. And this is not happening everywhere. We're in Sunderland. It's happening in Sunderland. Welcome to Sunderland. Okay? So, yeah.
Well, I'm from Rotherham and it happened in Rotherham, so welcome to Rotherham.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andy, for speaking with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I hope people really take it in their heart, learn about what's actually happening. If you have any concerns of this, I'm actually going to make all this available to Sam. Information that I can't talk about on public media. Remember, safeguarding, which is, we all agree with that on public media, but I'm going to make this available to her like I do to every other professional, because this is a scandal. okay? And we need to now come together, and I want to finish on that. We need to all come together. Put your differences aside. It's not about colour, creed or religion. Put all the differences aside. We need to stand together. Together we will unite, because what they have been doing is dividing and conquering, mischief. This is what the authorities are doing. Now, when we come together on one common platform, it's game over. It's game over for a lot of them, all the way to the Parliament, who's been allowing this to happen and neglecting all this deliberately. But Sammy, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.